Good evening. This meeting of the Littleton Licensing Authority will come to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Chair Cole.
Here.
Vice Chair LaVere.
Present.
Authority Member Buchanan.
Here.
Authority Member Day.
Here.
Authority Member Schock.
Here.
Authority Member Webb.
Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have an agenda. Do any authority members have changes? And if not, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is 3A, certification of minutes from both our October 10th, 2018 and November 14th, 2018 regular meeting minutes. And these are the approval of the clerk certification. Did anyone have any issues with the minutes or the certification? And if not, I would entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the minutes for the October 10th, 2018 and the November 14th, 2018 regular meetings of the Littleton Licensing Authority.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll keep jumping.
Second. A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Next item on the agenda is public comment. Is there anyone here tonight who would like to speak at public comment on something that is not otherwise on the agenda? Seeing none. Next item on our agenda is item 6A, 18-008, preliminary hearing for Far East Venture Inc., doing business as the Toad Tavern, 5302 South Federal Circle, number A, Littleton, Colorado. So for those at home, we last week, or last month, voted to move forward to show cause. Our process is that we provide a month in between for the licensee to speak with the prosecutor, and it looks like we have a stipulation agreement. Are you here on behalf of the licensee this evening?
Good evening. My name is Carl Ream. My registration number is 19397, and I represent Far East Ventures, and I'm their counsel.
All right, thank you. And we have someone from the city prosecutor's office.
And Jordan Lubeck from the city prosecutor's office.
Good evening, Mr. Lubeck. So the way we normally go about this is that we'll ask the prosecutor to present the stipulation and speak to why he came to his decision. We'll ask to confirm to make sure that you understand what you're entering into.
Yes.
But we'll go ahead and start. But you're welcome to stay there. You can. So good evening.
Good evening. So we've come to a stipulation agreement in this matter for the Toad Tavern, a first offense. Do I need to go through some of the background of what happened, or just what the agreement is and why it came to that?
We have the police report, so I think we have a pretty good understanding of the facts. I will certainly let other authority members ask any questions about the facts, but I think if you could just briefly describe, I mean, we obviously have a copy of the stipulation, but if you could briefly describe the stipulation and any information that went into your decision-making to enter into it, that'd be helpful.
So on a first offense of this sort, I think the kind of baseline suspension is a 10-day suspension with 5 days held in abeyance. In this matter, I deviated a bit from that, did a 10-day suspension with 7 days held in abeyance. The reason for that is I spoke with counsel, Mr. Ream, and he provided me some information where I thought it was appropriate. The bartender, who was also personally cited into municipal court for over-serving, hadn't really undergone too much training prior to this incident. He did some minor training, but Mr. Ream informed me that his client is now having his bartending staff do the TIPS training course and become certified. So his bartenders are going to be doing that, I believe, in the near future, and he can clarify the exact date, but that's on board. Also, the bartender took personal responsibility, pled guilty, was placed on a deferred sentence, meaning that if he paid the fine and didn't pick up any new offenses, eventually the charges would be dropped, but he did take personal responsibility. The bartender was also given a verbal reprimand, was not terminated as it was a first violation, but it seems as though the Toad Tavern is instituting a system where if something like this happens again, bartenders will be immediately terminated. The Toad Tavern, they believe that this policy of immediate termination and the TIP certification will prevent similar instances like this from happening in the future. So based on all that information, it being a first offense, I thought it was appropriate for a 10-day suspension with 7 days held in abeyance. And the suspension being, I believe this offense was November 3rd, which is a Saturday. So it would be the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, so a Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for the actual suspension to be in place.
Okay. I'll ask the other authority members, but Lena and Colleen, can you please help us remember from a process standpoint, this is a little bit different than how we had done in the past. So instead of setting a date in the future, the new process?
So our new process going forward, and I think we've done this once prior, is that for fines in lieu of suspension, we are no longer going to be doing dates in the future, and we will be doing it over the actual day of the incident, and then calculating either, a couple days prior or following that. So that's what they're doing now. Like Mr. Lubeck said, the violation occurred on a Saturday, and so we will be basing the fine on that Saturday and the Sunday and Monday following.
Okay. Any other questions from the authority for the city prosecutor's office? Good. So again, we'll just ask to make sure that you're aware of what you're signing, and if there's anything you want to describe about in addition to what the prosecutor said about steps that you all have taken to make sure this doesn't happen again, you're welcome to go ahead and address that.
Thank you. So I have with me tonight Mr. Iksu Pang, who is the managing member for Far East Ventures, LLC. Obviously, we're embarrassed to be here in front of you, but this unfortunate incident did happen. And as with the bartender, we are taking responsibility for this as well. So the reason that the bartender that committed this violation was not terminated, Mr. Pang indicated that it being so near the holidays, he didn't want to make it extra hard on the individual. So with that in mind, we have come up with a policy where any future violations will result in immediate termination. Okay. Of the 4 bartenders that worked there, only one appears to have had any type of liquor server training, responsible vendor training. So it was agreed that everybody, including Mr. Pang, would undergo this TIPS certification. TIPS is a training for responsible alcohol server. And it is something that is recognized by the Colorado Department of Revenue. We are scheduled to take that this Saturday, okay? So upon completion, we're going to provide copies of everybody's certificates to show that everybody had attended. We will be asking for a fine in lieu of actual suspension, and pursuant to the guidelines, we've prepared sales results for that November 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and we will be submitting that along with our request for payment of fine in lieu. Okay.
And when you say everyone, obviously you said the manager, also the bartenders, any other staff? I know in the police report, the person working the door was referenced. Would someone like that also go through TIPS training?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody that is at the bar will be required to take this tips training. We didn't include any waitresses simply because it's primarily the bartenders that are serving the alcohol, and the waitresses tend to be part-time employees. They're there for an hour or two, and we make the doorman and the bartenders primarily responsible for who they are serving, who they are letting in the door, actually.
Okay. Any questions from the authority?
In the original police report, it was stated that the manager on duty, Timothy, told the police officer that nothing had been served to this gentleman. Have you taken any steps to address what might have been a not well thought out comment to the police officer? I mean, providing a false statement to the police officer when he would then verified it otherwise seems like a problem to me.
Yes, I think part of the problem was that Saturday, I believe they had entertainment there, and it was just, such a busy night. All the bartenders were just, going about their business as quickly as they could, and perhaps Mr. Ferry did not actually see what happened, but then the bartender that actually did the service, as the city attorney said, did take responsibility and was truthful in the story that he told. And it's my belief that perhaps Mr. Ferry just did not observe what was taking place.
Okay, so we'll make a motion here in just a minute. Obviously you understand the seriousness of the situation, the, health and safety of your patrons and the community. So certainly glad that you are going to have your staff go through tips. Wish that it had been before you all were here in front of us, but hope that certainly keeps something like this from happening again. So I would entertain a motion on acceptance of the stipulation.
I move to approve the stipulation agreement and order between the city prosecutor and the licensee in section 5C of the stipulation. The period of proposed suspension for purposes of calculating the fine in lieu of suspension shall be November 3, 2018 to November 5, 2018. The show cause hearing date, originally scheduled for January 9, 2019, is hereby vacated.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any discussion? Will the clerk please poll the authority?
Chair Cole,
Yes.
Vice Chair Levere,
Yes.
Authority Member Buchanan,
Yes.
Authority Member Day,
Yes.
Authority Member Schock.
Yes.
All right, that's all for this evening. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 9A, staff report, and we'll wait just a minute to give Colleen a moment. On the staff report, the Jackass Hill Brewery is under a temporary, can you just describe that?
So they're still in construction with some finishing touches. What we did was we worked with TCB, which is their certification to brew at the manufacturer level, because they are a brew pub, so they hold a two-tiered license.
Meaning they can both serve at their location and
So
sell.
they can brew their own to serve on-site or sell for off-site, as well as carrying other people's
on their taps.
beers,
on the menu.
vinous, spiritus, the whole thing.
Okay.
They're really trying to get open within the next couple of weeks, and in order to do that, they would like to have some of their own product brewed. So we worked with state officials and with the building department to get them a temporary CO for just their tank room so they can start brewing.
Oh, certificate of occupancy?
Well, it's Yes, thank you. Temporary certificate of occupancy,
Okay.
just for the tank room at this time.
Got it, okay. Well, thanks for accommodating them. Any other questions from the authority thank you. Any other questions from the authority on the staff report?
I see we have maybe a date of first read on our code changes for January 15th.
That is
and
correct.
Second read on February 5th. These code changes we developed a year ago, and we were waiting on some statutory changes at the state level so that everything lines up and we don't have to do the process twice.
That is correct. We were waiting because the state was going to change the title and moved everything into 44. And so instead of having to go back and update that all over again, we decided to just hold and wait until that. And that became effective in October of this year. However, council has had a very full schedule. And so this is the first time that we were able to get this in front of them because they have been very busy. So that's why it's been a long process, but I think the end is in sight.
Okay.
Any other questions? Do you foresee business at the January?
Barring any potential violations that may come forward, I don't have any new business.
Okay. If there is a potential violation that comes up, it looks like I'll be traveling for work, but we can address that if and when something needs to be scheduled.
With the roll of the new year, there's nothing that needs to be done on a license standpoint for all of our 3-2 vendors. They can then, on January 1st, start purchasing from wholesalers full-strength beer for every location in the city.
Correct. Many of them already have orders in pending. It's kind of a catch-22. The manufacturers who are licensed to manufacture full-strength fermented malt beverage, of course, have been doing that all along, but the 3-2 manufacturers who will also convert January 1, under state statute, really couldn't start manufacturing until January 1, but the state has kind of said they're not really going to look too closely at that so that they can roll that over and that their customers will have stock. And you see it everywhere you go, every grocery store, you see they're making extra room on their shelves and rearranging stores, and they're getting ready. Yeah, and we don't have to do anything from our standpoint.
Is there any opportunity to help our citizens in terms of working with our liquor establishments to ensure that if they do sell 3-2, that's clearly marked? Is there any signage problems there that we might want to look at in the code, or because I know 3-2 is not going away.
The classification is not going away. One thing that is up in the air as part of all this new legislation that's come down, and this was actually out of 18243, I think, the labeling requirements may be changing in that they may not be requiring to put the alcohol by volume on the container. So that's still kind of a bone of contention, and CML's working on that, as well as many members of the Clerks Association, and we'll just kind of have to see where that goes.
And the Deputy City Clerk and I are actually going to be listening in on a webinar that the state is giving tomorrow afternoon, which hopefully will be clearing up some lingering questions. And if anything of interest comes out of that, I'd be happy to send you guys an update.
Yeah, I just know that there is a certain population that does drink non-alcoholic beer or light beer on purpose because they just don't want to get as drunk, but they like the taste, or they like to participate. And so there is still a market for that, especially if some of the state parks haven't changed their rules to allow more than 3-2. People who want to be compliant still buy the 3-2, and they need to know that what they're buying is compliant with what they're intending to use it for.
Right, that's a state control. That isn't anything that we can control locally. That has to do with whatever they decide their labeling requirements are going to be. and any requirements that they would set forth for manufacturers, distributors, or those at the retail level. I don't know that there's a way that the city could control how they would label their product.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking necessarily the product itself, but shelf space, sectionized.
Then we still get into telling people how to run their business.
Yeah, it happens to some small degree, and we wouldn't make it onerous, but
I mean, it's something we can definitely look into. I don't know that there will be a resolve for that. I certainly understand your concern, and I agree with you.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll see what this webinar kind of clears up tomorrow.
Any other questions from the authority? Anything else from staff? All right, this meeting is adjourned.